Hello and welcome to ET Now Startup Central, India's first and only daily show dedicated to startups, technology and entrepreneurship. I'm Chandra Shrikant coming to you live from India's startup capital, Bengaluru. And the big deal story of the day is clearly Ola's re-entry into the food delivery space with its buyout of Foodpanda's India operations for under $50 million in an all-stock deal. Now, though companies haven't disclosed the transaction amount, this is the number that we have picked up. Additionally, Ola will also invest an additional $200 million to grow this business. It's important to mention here that this is not Ola's foray into the food delivery space. They have re-entered it after an unsuccessful foray with Ola Cafe back in 2016. Here's a short report by my colleague Rahul Dama on what this acquisition means for Ola and the competitive intensity as far as the food tech space is concerned.
The online food delivery space is sizzling again. After a series of shutdowns and mass layoffs last year, it seems like food tech is back in the flavor. Cab-hailing app Ola has placed a big bet on the food category by acquiring Foodpanda in an all-stock deal for under $50 million and will invest another $200 million to grow it, even as UberEats is steadily gaining traction. While Ola did try its hands with Ola Cafe, it shut down the division owing to poor response in 2016. With $1.1 billion in its kitty from the recent mega fundraise, it's now looking to expand into new areas of growth to keep Uber at bay. But it won't be an easy ride. With heavyweights like Zomato and Swiggy pumping all they have to win the market, Ola will have some severe catching up to do. With Rahul Dayama in Bengaluru, Dipshika Ghosh, ET Now, Mumbai.
And for more details on what this deal really means for the food tech space, which as Rahul said is sizzling again, we have a very special guest on the show, live and exclusive on ET Now. Saurabh Kochchar, the outgoing CEO Foodpanda India, joins us exclusively on Startup Central, all the way from Gurgaon. Saurabh, thank you so much for talking to ET Now. You came into Foodpanda India as its CEO at a very difficult phase for Foodpanda. Considering all that's happened today, what's your own take on this deal, on what this means for Foodpanda?
Well, thank you so much. Like you yourself said, I think it's been a very, very uphill task for us over the last years. I think it's taken a lot of energy to combat everything that was wrong with the perception outside of the company itself. We've always believed that that food is a very, very strong sector. It's a huge market opportunity, and the way we've focused on the core business, on making things right, is reflected in our the latest financials that we've released as well. So I think it's really been quite an uphill task, and I'm quite happy and pleased with the fact that we've been able to kind of bring it to a level where now it's into partnership with Ola, and I really hope it's great times ahead. I also want to quickly give a huge shout out to my team. I think they're the heart and soul of everything that we have done, and it just feels really good. Thank you.
Right, I'm sure it's an emotional moment for the team as well, Saurabh. But, as I said, you were brought in at a difficult time, I think sometime in 2015. And in the last 2 years, you've spent a significant amount of time in really cleaning up operations, stabilizing operations. What would you say Foodpanda India is today compared to what it was 2 years back? Is it a more healthy enterprise that, this is not a distressed sale, this is a healthy asset that Ola has picked up?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I would completely say that. In fact, just over the last year, we've been able to reduce our burn 4 times while almost doubling in terms of our top line. So yes, it's a much more healthier business. We focused a lot on automation. We focused a lot on getting the key business metrics right. We've 2 business verticals. There's about half the business that we deliver on our own, and half that is a marketplace business. Both of them are profitable at a unit economics level. So I think there's a lot of effort that has gone into, and yes, I would definitely say it's a very, very healthy business. It's one of the most profitable, like I said, in terms of capital utilization amongst any other player in India. So yes, it's a very, very healthy business.
Right. And Saurabh, was this the only way out for Foodpanda India? I mean, would it have been difficult to, grow this as a standalone business? Was this the only logical option? Because if I look at the food tech space today, it's dominated by Zomato, Swiggy, and perhaps, Foodpanda in the third place. You also have UberEats launching in India a few months back. So was this the only viable option out? Were you brought in with a mandate that you need to stabilize operations before an eventual sale?
Yeah. So not really. I think at any given point, any business has multiple options. We've always had multiple options at various different stages. This partnership looked like a very logical one, very interesting one. But yes, I think when I came in, the biggest mandate was to stabilize the operations, to kind of somewhere, the entire 2015 was a very hypersensitive time for startup ecosystem overall, and I'm not really limited to food tech. So overall for startups, it was a very up and down year with huge cash flowing in initially, and then suddenly complete cash going out of the market. So I think it was a fairly critical time, and the idea was there to kind of focus on the core operations, focus on the core business values of one, bringing in the right experience to the customers, and secondly, making it financially viable in the long term. So I think that's where the focus has been all along.
Right. Saurabh, while I understand you cannot get into the reasons why Ola may have entered into this deal, that's for them to answer. But this is not their foray into the food delivery space. They experimented with Ola Cafe, I think in 2016. It did not pick up traction. They completely shut down Ola Cafe. So what differentiator will Foodpanda bring, considering they tried Ola Cafe and it didn't work out? I mean, is it the fact that you already have expertise, they do not have to build this the ground up? Explain that to us. How will it be different this time compared to the previous time?
Well, like you yourself said, it's not for me to comment really from how it goes on from here forth. But yes, the only thing I can tell you is that Ola Cafe was a slightly different model. It was a meal on the go kind of model versus Foodpanda, which is a marketplace come delivery, restaurant delivery kind of marketplace model. So these are fairly different businesses. So not really comparable in that in the true sense.
Right. And what happens to Foodpanda India employees, Saurabh, as a result of this deal? I mean, that's something that everyone would want to know. What happens to the employees? How many of them are there currently? Any details you can share on that front?
Again, no, I'm unfortunately not. I think it's all happy. It's a great opportunity for everyone, and that's the extent to which I can really say anything about it. Yeah.
Right. Would you be able to give us a backstory on how, on when the process started, when you closed it? I know it was disclosed today, but has it been in the works, say, for a few weeks now? Just a little backstory to understand this better.
Yeah, of course. I think it's... Yeah, I think whenever anything like this happens, it takes a lot of groundwork. It takes a lot of understanding, and I think what is good is that we are now moving into a phase where these kind of deals will start happening. I think it gives a lot of push to the overall startup ecosystem per se, because one of the things that has really been missing in the Indian startup scene is really good exits, is this kind of M&A activity, which then kind of gives a lot of courage for a lot more people to try it out. I think this is the part which is a very essential part, pretty much the last piece of the puzzle but which has not been very prevalent in the Indian startup industry, so to say. We somehow tend to look for failures more than celebrating success. So I would just say that I think it's a very good opportunity. It's a very good signal. It's a very good time. I think we should I want everybody to celebrate it, and hopefully this paves way for a lot more.
Right. Hopefully it will encourage many more entrepreneurs. But Saurabh, looking at the food tech space today, would you say it's in a much more healthy, mature phase compared to, the multiple apps we had 1 or 2 years back, and then eventually a lot of them had to shut down because the model wasn't working, unit economics wasn't right. So would you say the food tech space is much better poised today? I mean, you have, in the aggregation space, you have a Zomato, Swiggy, Foodpanda. In the cloud kitchen space, so to speak, you have players like a Fresh Menu or an Inner Chef. So is it most organized in that space, fewer players going after niche segments? What would you say about the food tech space?
I think definitely yes. I think, like I said, in any industry there is multiple phases. There's a mushrooming phase, which which happened around the 2015 time, where a lot of Me Too kind of models. Every second company was a food tech company. So we've been through all of those phases. I think yes, you're absolutely right. Today we are the food tech industry per se is entering into a slightly more mature stage. Any consolidation or M&A activity generally does indicate that the industry is moving more and more towards maturity. But that said, I think it's still very, very early days. Food services, which is restaurant industry in India, is a $50 billion industry, and what is being delivered home is $15 billion. And all the players put together are early single-digit percentages of the overall market being online. So while yes, it's a much more healthy state, it's a much better situation to be in, but yet I would want to say that it's still very, very early days for food tech industry in India, and we have a long way to go.
Right. Final couple of questions, Saurabh. As someone who's run a food tech, company in the last 2 years, consolidating operations, setting things right, what do you make of the presence of a player like UberEats and, now an Ola countering them? Can cab aggregators who leverage platform opportunities to get into services have the same impact as a standalone food delivery app? That's what I'm trying to understand in terms of how the synergy works out.
Yeah. So basically, from a synergy perspective, see, the biggest cost for anybody is today customer, right? And if you can aggregate customer in any sense, it makes a lot more synergistic play, and that remains true for everybody. That's the entire reason why UberEats exists. That's the reason why they've also been decently successful across the world and not only in India. So yeah, I think the synergistic play definitely exists. The customer is very similar, and all the best to everyone. Like I said, I think it's still very, very early days in the overall food tech sector in India per se. So I think everybody has a very, very good chance to be a market leader.
I dare say Santa Claus has arrived a little early for you, Saurabh, but finally, you will be leaving Foodpanda as part of this deal. Pranay Jivrajka, Ola's founding partner, will step in as interim CEO. What are your plans going forward? You must tell us if you're starting up something else, running some other business for Rocket Internet. What plans do you have on that front?
Yeah. So I think it's the perfect time of the day for, especially to have a nice holiday. I think that's my step one. So I really want to kind of it's been a crazy ride for me personally for the last 6 years. First running Print Venue and then Foodpanda. So I just want to kind of take it easy for a bit, really regather my thoughts, and hopefully start something soon.
Okay, we look forward to your next venture then. But on that note, thank you so much for joining us live and exclusive on ED Now Startup Central on such a momentous day as far as the food tech space is concerned. Let's see how this battle plays out. But thanks so much for joining us. We get you a story about the Indian Venture Capital and Private Equity Association today launching a guidebook of sorts for entrepreneurs. Now this guidebook, it's a PDF that runs up to many pages, will be made available on their website shortly. But basically it addresses many crucial questions that entrepreneurs should be looking at even as they chase dreams, build their startup, chase funding. It covers compliance, it covers governance, it covers board meetings, it covers the whole hog. In fact, listen in to DIPP Secretary Ramesh Abhishek talking about this initiative and why it's important even as the government focuses on Startup India.
The government has already given tax concessions to startups for 3 out of 7 years. They have also given so many other tax concessions.
So you spoke about more tweaks in the budget, possibly in the upcoming budget. Have you made any recommendations to the finance minister?
No. I did not say that there are going to be any tweaks, but it is a work in progress, working on regulations. So where the tax policy is concerned, the government has already given a lot of tax benefits to startups. Now we are in the process of implementing those. We have an inter-ministerial committee in the department that looks at the eligible startups for tax benefits. So all those things are being done.
So the CSR recommendation which you give for incubators, so what is the status of this?
See, we have made a recommendation to the Ministry of Corporate Affairs that under CSR, they should also cover those incubators which are supported by the government but not necessarily located in academic institutions approved by the government. And this support should be given to all incubators, not only to technology incubators. That is a recommendation we have made to the MCA.
Okay, so what's the status?
We have made a recommendation and we are hoping that they will favorably consider it.
The contract enforcement has been another issue. Have you been in talks with the state governments to maybe speeden up the process? Because a lot of complaints have been made, particularly from startups, about enforcement of contracts.
See, the contract enforcement is one of the many indicators that we have in ranking of states on ease of doing business. So states are supposed to do reforms under that also, and that gets evaluated and it affects their ranking.
But sir, have you seen a change in that over the past?
You see, we have seen a very large number of commercial courts being opened up in the country in various states.
Right.
I think, if I remember the number correctly, almost 250 commercial courts have been opened in the country in the various states. So definitely there is a lot of progress.
So what's the status on the credit guarantee scheme for startups to the 1,000 crore startup?
See, we have already submitted a proposal for consideration of the cabinet, and we are awaiting a decision.
So by when should we expect?
No, that I can't say that. When what decision will be taken and when is not something that I can predict.
And finally, we end with another important story to address from an Apple perspective, where their India head Sanjay Kaul has stepped down, making way for Michelle Cullum. Now, remember, this comes at a time when Apple share in India has pretty much been static. It hasn't been able to counter Samsung or any of the other Chinese players in a big way. So Apple has brought in a new name to really head up India operations. Now, in the last 3-4 earnings calls, at least, Apple CEO Tim Cook has made it a point of mentioning India as a very important market for them. But I guess in terms of prices, in terms of sales, it hasn't really matched up to that. We'll of course have to wait and see if something important, if these changes really help improve Apple's position in India. But on that note, I'm afraid we are completely out of time on ET Now Startup Central. Thanks so much for watching.